Recording has started.
Okay, got it. Okay. Good evening. I'm now calling the Tuesday, August 17th, 2021 regular meeting of the Los Altos Hills County Fire District Board of Commissioners to order. The time now is 7:02 p.m. Please note that in support of physical distancing during the local public health emergency and in accordance with Governor Newsom's executive order that relaxed Brown Act rules during this public health crisis, we're conducting the meeting via video conference. Because we're video conferencing, we will follow a strict protocol for the benefit of recording. I will indicate when commissioners, staff, presenters, and the public will provide comments. If you're called into the meeting and is not using a webcam, please state your name prior to providing your comment. For the benefit of the recording, please practice considerate video conferencing etiquette by muting your line when not speaking and limiting distracted behavior on camera. District Clerk Vargas, please conduct a roll call.
Commissioners, I will be conducting all roll call this evening in the same order. Please remember the order so that you are prepared to provide your comment or vote. President Warren, Vice President Bond.
Present.
Commissioner Kearney.
Here.
Commissioner Sherlock.
Here.
Commissioner Spreen.
Here.
Commissioner Tonka.
Yeah.
Commissioner Tyson.
Here.
All right, and we have 6 of the 7 commissioners present. And for the benefit of the recording, I will also conduct a presenters, consultants, and staff roll call. Acting Fire Chief Glass.
Good evening.
Good evening. Strategic Planning Consultant Scott.
Here.
Emergency Services Manager Captain Gluhan.
Present.
Integrated Hazardous Fuels Reduction Consultant Barnett. I know he's there, but he's muted. There you go. Are you here, Dave?
Yeah, Barnett is here.
Thank you very much. General Manager Logan.
Present.
Okay. Lead Deputy County Counsel Cheladin.
Present.
Cert Program Analyst Beebe.
Present.
Fryer and Loretta Consulting Engineer Tarantino.
Present.
Mid-Peninsula Open Space District Manager Gorman and others. I don't know if there's anyone representing Mid-Peninsula Open Space.
Cody Cifuentes and Craig Beckman are here right now.
Great, thank you. And Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council Managing Director Rendler. I don't think she is present. So presenters, consultants, and staff are accounted for.
All right, thank you. Good evening, commissioners, staff, presenters, and members of the public. I'm standing in for President Warren tonight. I want to take a minute to mention that LAHCFD is hosting a community meeting on the County Fire Service Review on August 25th at 6 p.m. via Zoom. We encourage members of the public to attend, participate in the review process. And this meeting is an opportunity for participants to learn more about the countywide fire service review, provide input on fire and emergency medical service in our community, and hear from local fire service providers on fire safety, wildland preparedness, and wildland preparedness. We also encourage residents to participate in the community fire survey. More information about this meeting is provided in the agenda on item number 6C. We will move on to item 3, public comment. Okay.
You will read the public comment section there if you could, Melvin.
Yep. Public comment, persons wishing to address the commission on any subject not on the agenda may do so now. Please note, however, the commission is not able to undertake extended discussion or action tonight on items not on the agenda. Items will be referred to staff for appropriate actions, which may include placement on the next available agenda. District policy is to limit public testimony to 3 minutes per speaker unless a member of the number of the speakers requires the commission president to impose shorter time limits. Do we have any public comment or items not on the agenda? Okay, hearing none. We will move on now to item number 4, consent calendar and changes to the order of the Board of Commissioners agenda. Okay, everyone get a chance to review the consent agenda and changes? Are there any comments from staff on these items? Okay, thank you. Hearing none, are there any questions from the commission on these items which would any commissioners like to make any changes to the consent calendar or the order of the agenda? Hearing none. Now I would like to entertain a motion. Will the commissioners making the motion, or the commissioner making the motion and the commissioners seconding the motion, please state your names for the benefit of the recording. Do I have a motion?
Commissioner Tonka, so moved.
Tyson seconds.
Okay. Thank you. This item is open for discussion. Is there any discussion from commissioners? Okay, thank you. Hearing none. Is there any further, if there's no further discussion, we would like to vote now. District Clerk Vargas, please conduct the roll call.
We should take a public comment. Yeah.
Yep, thanks.
Is there any public comment on the agenda item? Okay, it looks like there's none. So I will take roll call. Vice President Vaughn,
Yes.
Commissioner Kearney,
I abstain with respect to the matters that were on the discussed and resolved at the last meeting that I didn't attend.
okay, noted. Commissioner Sherlock,
Yes.
Commissioner Spreen,
Yes.
Commissioner Tonka,
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson.
Yes.
Okay, and the motion passes 5-6 with one abstaining.
Okay.
Or I'm sorry, 5-0 with one
5-0.
abstaining. Let's try that. Yeah, let's try that again.
All right.
I was just going to suggest, Commissioner Kearney, I think you just abstained as to the minutes on 4A, right? Did you want to vote on 4B through 4E?
That's right. Thank you, Council. So yeah, I abstain with respect to 4A and approve with respect to B, C, D, and E. Thank you.
And so for the minutes and the notes here, we have the motion passing 5-0 with one abstaining on item 4A only.
Great.
Commissioner Kearney abstaining on item 4A. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to item number 5, mission moment. Okay. Item 5A is on the report and 5B is a video. General Manager Logan, please present the item. This item will take about 3.5 minutes, or the video will take about 3.5 minutes. So.
Yes. Thank you, Vice President Vaughn. The memorandum report that's included in the agenda packet provides an overview of the purpose of a mission moment. The communication team, as it implements Strategic Goal 5, developed the idea for a video to be presented tonight. Commissioner Joan Sherlock can provide comments. So Commissioner Sherlock, could you present this item? Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. I'm sure that many of you have worked with organizations where they use a mission moment as an additional way for them to connect with their community. And in the district's case, it's a way to bring our mission to life that will encourage and inspire others to take action. And a mission moment can be from a resident who worked with the district on something of meaning, or it can be from one of our partners who accomplished a goal by our side, or from one of our staff who has a great story to tell. And tonight, we're going to hear a very compelling story from Amita Sachdeva. Our interview recorder, videographer, and drone operator, Jackson Ricketts, augmented the interview with some great context, and he will now tee up the video. And we're happy to get feedback and questions after it plays. Go ahead.
Counties. The CZU, which is forcing new evacuations in San Mateo and Santa Cruz counties, and the
I did not know that we were going to be receiving an evacuation warning. A few neighbors and I had been monitoring the CZU fire since there were hotspots nearby, and we had discussed the possibility of being evacuated, and that was only if the fires were to spread in our direction.
Now at 11, we have breaking news. The Bay Area burning as hundreds of wildfires rage. CAL FIRE warns all of us, be prepared to leave at a moment's notice.
The unincorporated portion of Moody Road received our evacuation warning around 7 p.m. on August 23rd. And as I had mentioned, a few of us had already been monitoring the situation for the CZU fires.
22,000 people have been ordered to evacuate. The flames are, there is no containment, 0% contained, and they have consumed at least 20 homes.
After receiving the warning, I contacted some of my neighbors, including my landlord, and let them know that we should start planning to pack up our belongings and possibly stay at a friend or family's house until the warning has been lifted. I saved a few checklists, including an evacuation checklist and go back checklist on my phone. And I was able to pull these up and assist 3 of our neighbors with prepping their homes and their go bags.
New evacuation orders have been issued all over the Bay Area and in the Santa Cruz Mountains.
Once my neighbors were safely evacuated from the property, I stayed there and prepared it as much as possible for the incoming fire threat. We have a lot of dry brush that's surrounding our homes, so I spent a few hours in the late evening clearing the brush and then saturating all the fuel that was laying around with water. We could have done much more to prepare our property, such as clearing the brush, removing the fuel close to the house, and many other things. Taking advantage of the district's brush chipping program now and not waiting for an evacuation warning would be better as well. I encourage all residents to start taking advantage of the programs the district has to offer, and also sign up for the next Cert Academy, because it is one of the most valuable programs that we have to offer. I highly recommend that if you live in an area that may have a high risk of fire, earthquake, or any other disaster situation, to start making a plan for yourself and your family today. Los Altos Hills is an absolutely beautiful place to live. However, we do have a very high fire risk, especially with the drought. It's important to regularly maintain your property, do brush removal, identify your ignition zones, and also just know who to call or reach out if we do receive another warning. If we end up receiving an actual evacuation order, it's also really important that residents are properly prepared to leave in a timely manner, so that way we can let our first responders do their job.
Thank you for that, Jackson and team. Anyone have any comments or find this of value? Who would like to give feedback?
I think it was a great video. It's very informative, and it's just kind of a reminder of what we went through and the risk. And I can remember, personally being ready to evacuate. So let's hope this year is not as a threatening time. So thank you.
Okay. George.
I thought it was very impressive. Boy, it just drew me right in. It was so expertly prepared, and yet it hit all the key kind of messages we need people to hear. And so I just thought, wow, the more the people that see that, the better.
Great feedback. Thank you. And thank you, Jackson. Good job. And Amita.
I just want to say thank you to Amita. She's very active in our Cert group. She's very involved in emergency preparedness planning and training in our department and our group. And I just want to say thank you to Amita and Jackson and you, Joan, for putting together this awesome video. It gave me chills. So good work.
I too think it's excellent, and maybe the next time we have a city council meeting, it might be worth playing it as well, because there'll be many more people watching at that point in time. So you know how a visual is worth 1,000 words. So I think it might be very effective to use it then too.
Wonderful idea. Thanks, Kavita. Terrific. Thanks, team. Any other feedback before we move on?
It looks great. Where will this be presented and distributed?
Well, we'll be utilizing it definitely on the website and in social media. And if you come up with some more ideas, we'll certainly take them too. Thanks, all.
Right. Any other comments?
I had one. I didn't attend the first one, but we've got 2 wildfire kind of sessions. And I believe one was August 11th and another is the 31st. I might be way off on the dates, but there's still one yet to come. I could go look for my card.
I'd have to go look at the dates.
Are you talking about County Fire's HIZ zone, George?
I think so.
It's August 31st.
Yes.
From
that's it.
6:30 to 8:30 and Eventbrite registration.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else? Great. All right, thank you, General Manager Logan and Commissioner Sherlock and Mr. Ricketts. Are there any more discussion from the commission? Hearing none. How about any public comment on this item? And hearing none. We'll now move to item number 6, monthly reports to county committees. Okay. Okay, items 5A and B are various documents submitted by the district to the county. Item 5C is information about the LAHCFD countywide fire service review, community workshop, and survey. General Manager Logan, please provide the reports.
Yes, thank you, Vice President Vaughn. Item A is the Hewlett August 12th monthly report that was received with positive discussion by the Hewlett committee. And then item B, and these are in your packet. Item B is the management audit report for June and July that states the district is implementing or on track to implement audit recommendations and that they have no concerns. Item C is an encouragement to residents to attend the LAHCFD community meeting, and that's on August 25th, and complete the fire survey. Postcards from the district will be mailed to each household in the district with the community meeting information, encouraging every household to apply. And you'll hear more about this in a later report from Commissioner Taka. Thank you. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, General Manager Logan. Is there any discussion from the commission?
George has his hand raised.
That's right. I had the pleasure of attending this the meeting on August 12th, and I have to say, it was quite striking to me. Mike Wasserman is the county supervisor. First off, I think he made a comment that many groups have been contacting him. Well, he didn't quite say this, but how can we get audited so we can report monthly on how great we are? It was a funny kind of turn of events. But Jay gave a really nice, concise report, and then Mike Wasserman went off on a aren't you guys wonderful? This is really encouraging and pleased with us. And so I guess he went a little off script, just as I am right now. But it was really heartwarming, I would say, to see that level of support.
Great. Thank you for your comments, George.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay. How about members from the public? Any public comments? Okay. Okay, thank you. Hearing none, we will now move on to item number 8, the general manager's report.
Actually, item number 7.
Sorry, a little faster. Okay, items 7 and 8 are the reports. Acting Fire Chief Glass, please provide these reports.
And good evening, members of the commission and staff. Apologize for being late. I was just coming from the LAHCFD meeting for South County, where I was representing as a TAC member. It was a successful meeting with about 37 participants. So we're looking forward to the Northwest meeting that's coming up next week. I'll go ahead and begin sharing my screen and give you an overview of the report for the last month. Can everyone see the screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Apologize for that. It's slow on my end. Item 1, no significant events last month, I'm happy to report, which is good considering the fire conditions that we have currently in the region at this time during August. Overall incident count, 472. We're still slightly off our pace from 2019 by almost 100 calls within the Los Altos Hills County Fire District, but we are above our pace for 2020. Again, the decrease in that number was due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which we're still seeing a slow rise coming out of that. 64 calls for service in the month of July. Obviously, our distribution of call volume by resource, we seem to have a real peak during lunchtime and then again during the dinner time hour, but it's not showing a large increase in the orange bar, which would be the large commitment of resources. So those are all single engine responses, either service calls, vehicle accidents, and or medical aids. Incident count, 50% of the total call volume in the month of July was EMS related, which totaled 32 calls. Service was the other 20 at 31%, fire alarms, and 1 small fire. It's reflected in the pie chart to the right. Response times look good. We did have 1 late call, or what we consider a late call, anything over 7 minutes and 59 seconds. That was because we had 2 calls in the jurisdiction at the same time. The rescue was committed on another medical aid, and engine 75 had to respond from Los Altos and didn't quite meet its response times metrics there. Other than that, every other call was within the specified time, for an average grand total response time of 6 minutes and 2 seconds in the urban area and 6 minutes and 20 in the rural density area. No dollar loss for fire. And there were a significant amount of community education participation during the month of July, which is very positive. On the screen is the disbursement of calls. Again, red being the fire. So we had a report of a fire. It would have been there at off of Page Mill Road on the north end of the district. And obviously it didn't turn out to be anything, or we would have had dollar loss or significant event criteria. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions or transition to the update on the Palo Alto Station 8 July responses. Okay. Let me transition my screen to the next report. Okay, this should have been distributed to the clerk this afternoon. I apologize for it not getting in early. This will be the report for the month of, well, this says June, but it should be for July. I apologize for that typo. We'll fix that, make sure. 2 calls on July 18th and July 19th. That was the total response for the apparatus in the month of July. So while it's only 2 calls, the availability of the unit in the area did provide the level of protection that we were seeking when we set up the 3-party agreement. The unit was available all that time, as we specified, from 8 in the morning till 8 in the evening. We did have a red flag condition on July 18th where we extended the apparatus the 12 hours through the night to cover the red flag warning. And again, we are under red flag conditions tonight, and we are also extending the apparatus tonight for 12 hours in consult with the general manager and the city of Palo Alto. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions as it relates to Station 8.
Chief Glass, I just wanted to say I did not receive this report this afternoon. I did have communication from your staff this morning, but so I'd appreciate if you could forward it to me, and if commissioners would like, I can distribute it to them and then post it online for the public.
Absolutely. I apologize for the oversight, and we'll get it sent out to you first thing.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Chief Glass, I do have a question. Is Station 8 doing much to familiarize themselves with the area that they're responsible for? Do they do regular patrols? How do they?
Yeah, they are out patrolling during the daytime. They have the availability to do training. They were out cross-training the other day. We had the Palo Alto Station crews down at the El Monte Station working and familiarizing themselves with our crews, our equipment, making sure that they have the ability to basically pollinize, cross-pollinize between the 2 agencies, make sure that everything works in conjunction together, strategies and tactics. So yeah, they're leveraging the time that they're there, familiarizing themselves with, our crews are primarily familiarizing themselves with Palo Alto, and Palo Alto is familiarizing themselves with Los Altos Hills. Great question, Commissioner. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Chief Glass, I have a question. So when Palo Alto personnel is on duty, then they still report to Los Altos Battalion Chief, is that correct?
So Palo Alto's staff reports to Palo Alto, and when Central Fire staff is on, they report to the Central Fire Battalion Chief. But as you're aware, on any incident, we work for whichever battalion chief arrives first and assumes command.
Gotcha. Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any other comments from the commission? Okay. Hearing none, members of the public? Okay, we'll now move on to item number 8. Items 8 and B are the.
There was a, sorry, there,
was a question.
Alan has his hand raised, yeah.
Sorry, Alan.
I think, Alan, you're on mute.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you, Chief. Just one clarifying question about the red flag. When you said that the staff worked the extra 12 hours in the evening, was that the addition to the Los Altos Hills County Fire District Station 74's extra staff, or was that the adding 12 additional hours to the Palo Alto station? Thank you.
Commissioner Vaughn, I'm happy to answer the question with your approval.
Yes, please. Yeah.
That's a great question, Mr. Epstein. Thank you so much for allowing me to clarify. So what we had in the agreement with Los Altos Hills County Fire District Central and Palo Alto was that under a red flag condition, the chiefs of either agency who were overseeing those personnel assigned could work collaboratively to authorize the additional staffing of the apparatus at Station 8. So the additional 12 hours were staffed at Station 8. They were Central Fire personnel assigned there, and they were available to respond to both Central Fire response area and or Palo Alto. I hope that answers your question.
If I could follow up.
Yes, please go ahead, Alan.
So Los Altos Hills County Fire District has a program where in the event of a red flag fire day, there's supposed to be an additional type 3 added. And it sounds like that program is superseded by the addition of the Palo Alto fire station. Am I misunderstanding this? Could you help me understand whether or not 2 units will be on duty on a red flag fire day, or just 1 additional unit would be on duty? Thank you.
Yeah, Chief, go ahead and answer the question, please.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, so what Mr. Epstein is referring to is our mode staffing. And so we do have mode staffing occasionally. At the time, there was not a need for us to do mode staffing in other areas. So we just exercised the extension of the crew that we already had on duty at Station 8. Yes, there is opportunities for us to have additional engines. We could staff the Type 3 at El Monte Fire Station with additional crew, but we didn't have that crew available. The engine was not staffed during the day. So when it came time at 8 o'clock to make the decision to extend the staffing that we had available to extend basically to mandatory on shift overnight was available at Station 8. And so we exercised that option. It does not preclude us in the future from staffing the Station 8 for 24 hours and adding an additional Type 3 if conditions warranted with the approval of the commission and the general manager at El Monte Fire Station.
Thank you.
Alan, did you have any further questions?
Thank you very much. No.
Great. Any other members of the public have any comments or questions? Okay, hearing none. Okay, items 9A and B are the reports.
Item number 8. The general manager report.
General manager report. That 8 is just like my favorite number tonight. So.
Okay, thank you, Vice President Vaughn. I think I'm screen sharing, but could you confirm if you see my screen?
No.
You have to reshare, Jay, because I had to put up the timer. Sorry.
Oh, thank you. Okay, good job. All right, let's try this again then. How does that look?
There it is.
Perfect.
Okay, screen share, good.
Yes, we can see it.
Thank you so much. So this is the general manager's report for the month of August, and just a very nice cover sheet with the various activities that we're going to talk about here on events. Okay, let me see if I think I'm frozen here. Hold on. There we go. Just to mention the update events and activities, I wanted to point out, and mainly is to get you this link. of Matteo Garbalado's presentation on home fire hardening in a WUI area. And this was presented on June 16th by Los Altos Hills Open Space Committee. And thank you to the committee for doing this and bringing in Professor Garbalato. He just did an excellent job and would recommend that to anyone who wants a very quick primer on how to do home fire hardening. July 13th was a presentation to the Los Altos City Council by myself, Acting Fire Chief Glass, joined by Supervisor Simidian, about the regional benefits and operations of Fire Station 8. We were pleased to present that. And then August 13th, Chief Glass and I were introduced and had a meeting with the new city manager, Gabriel England. And we reviewed the Fire and Emergency Services Agreement and the LAHCFD countywide Fire Services Review. Moving on, defensible space brush chipping. We're all celebrating that we have reached a new time high ever in the district with the numbers of properties requesting chipping for the month. And as a result of that, we're in a hurry to scale up our operations. We're on the phone with Fire Safe Council a couple of times, going through all of our logistics to figure out and to make sure that no one is absent opportunities for chipping, and that we standardize the chipping operations to meet with the scaled demands. Second week of the month will be for chipping, third week for overflow, and we're using a new software, and the software has a real great benefit of doing the routes in the most efficient way. So that takes a lot of pressure off of staff, knowing that we've got that software. Also does those following functions. And then we're continuing to look for renovations in the program to make it more broadly used by all of the residents. Fryer and Loretta, our district engineer consultant, would like to do an update on projects. And Mr. Tarantino, Jeff, you're here with us. Could you just run us through these next two slides on what is occurring with our water utility and some of our projects around fire hydrants? Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Sure thing. Yeah. Good evening, commissioners. Yeah, just wanted to give everybody an update on a handful of items that we've been assisting district staff with coordinating. First, Percival Hills Water District is in the design phase of what they call their depths water main improvement project. Staff will be meeting with Percival Hills, the engineering team, this Friday to walk the project limits. The goal of the walkthrough is to identify any necessary hydrant relocations. We've gotten guidance from County Fire Marshal's office on looking for opportunities to increase locations of hydrants to reduce spacing between hydrants to no more than 500 feet. And then any other possible, we see older hydrant models that may need replacing. So we'll be reviewing that evaluation, developing a report similar to what we've done for the other Percival Hills projects, and we'll be sharing that with you at a later meeting. The Horseshoe Lane erosion control project, a project that keeps going. We have received our grading permit, as I reported last time I met with the commission, and that grading permit from the town did require some additional drainage features. So we have incorporated those in the plans, presented them to the construction contractor, and are working through with the construction contractor some additional pricing to deal with the new drainage features. And again, we'll be coming back to the commission at a later date to present that information. We are still anticipating completing this erosion repair project prior to the next wet season, so prior to late October, early November of this year. Finally, Los Altos Hills is moving forward with their annual repaving project. They will be awarding a construction contract at their next town council meeting. The paving projects, we haven't talked about this in about a year, involves improving the roadways throughout Los Altos Hills. And what that does is it requires the district to raise any of their hydrant valves. So any of the valve covers that kind of protect our valves that are going to be affected by new pavement being placed, so the pavement elevation of the road will be raised. We come back after the paving's done and actually have to raise those valve covers. So we'll be working with the town's contractor to identify district valves that need to be raised and as they successfully improve the driving conditions throughout the town. General Manager Logan, would you mind scrolling to the next page?
Yes.
So thank you. So just a little bit more detail on the depths project. So we were first alerted by Prisma Hills a few months ago that this project was their next phase of annual water main replacement project. So we've reviewed the initial scope of work. We were provided recently a more detailed scope of work, and the Prisma Hills district engineer consultant, Puckmore Consulting, requests a site visit. So staff from Prisma Hills, FNL, we did invite the fire marshal office. They will not be able to attend. However, they did provide us guidance on what to consider. And they were attending last year's walkthrough for the Concepcion project. Once we do that walkthrough, we'll prepare a report with our suggestions of improvements, if any, that should be done for consideration by this committee. And so the project limits are on Duval Way, Elena Road, Padre Court, and the Seaton property. So with that, happy to answer any questions at the end of the report.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the next slide, I'd just like to point out a photo that came back this week, and we put it up on our social media and on our website. And this is that Los Altos Hills County Fire District supports at the district fire. And just kudos and hats off and thank you for your service, Commissioner Terry Kearney, and to Mari Okamoto Kearney, both of which are search and rescue members, work with the medical services for the state, and also Cert members for Los Altos Hills. And then also in the picture are our El Monte Fire Station fire crew, Battalion Chief Art Tomaselli and Acting Battalion Chief Dave Morrissey. So Chief Glass, I don't know if you want to make any comments about this slide, or give us any background on the team that was up there.
I'm sorry, General Manager Logan, I was on the other call here. I think your question was, did you want some background on the team that was assigned here?
Yeah, just a few comments.
Yeah, this is XSC 2307 Alpha. It's a strike team from Santa Clara County's operational area. And as you stated, we have Battalion Chief Tomasetti. He's third from the right. He's assigned to El Monte Fire Station. Many of you probably know him. Captain Dave Morrissey, he's second from the left. He's been assigned to El Monte Fire Station for many years. These are regular firefighting staff assigned to Los Altos Hills Fire District on a regular basis, and they're out there in the mutual aid system right now. This was an assignment on the Dixie Fire, and obviously you got Commissioner Kearney and his wife there who are doing their work as part of the CalMat team, and we just love the partnership. So this was a multi-agency response here. So we had the single engine that you see there, and then we had participants from several other agencies participate from within the county.
Yeah, thank you so much. Commissioner Kearney, any words? Comments?
Yeah, I would want to say that one of those other agencies is San Jose Fire, and Chief Barnett, who's I think on this call. We met and chatted. Many of their engineers and firefighters were there as well. So yeah, it was. It continues to be a real challenging fire, and it was an honor to serve the firefighters and help them through medical issues on behalf of the state EMS authority.
Thank you for that clarification. And thank you, Dave, for your service. I think you're on the call also, Dave Barnett. Okay, moving on, wanted to mention some activities going forward with the communication team, and that is on the Moody El Monte Road evacuation route. We're going to put up some roadside banners, and we're getting permits from the town of Los Altos Hills to do that. And the banners are designed and they will go up. Once those banners are up, that will alert residents and also just travelers on that route that there will be some hardening of the road and construction going on as we put in that evacuation route project. The other banners hopefully will go up at another time. And then here's a pictorial of our mailers and ads in the town crier. And this has to do with Central Fire's HIZ workshops that were put on. There was one in July, 2 in August 11th, and there's another one coming up, I think August the 19th. And so we've sent these cards out to all of the households in the district, encouraging our residents to take the HIZ class. So they will have really good primers on how to harden their structure and also harden their property. Victoria and I both took the program on this August, and we're very impressed with the content, the presenters, And thank you, Chief Glass, for having your division provide this service to the community. Victoria, any comments about the program and how you're going to use it with your certs? We took the Dropbox, and I think you've got all those materials available to your cert crew. Is that correct?
That's correct. We're looking at kind of enhancing our CERT program to be able to maybe be of service to the district with doing some, hardening education with the residents. Chief Glass, it was a very, very well put together presentation. I was very impressed, very detailed, hit every part of the house, every part of the zones. So thank you very much. We've been putting the word out to a lot of other CERT programs in the county too, to kind of just broaden our wildfire preparedness in our CERT support realm. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, thank you so much for the feedback. We really appreciate it. We've been, the crew in CES has been putting a lot of time into making sure that this program comes off very well. And again, we're always trying to strive for what the next, public safety messaging campaign can be. And so HIZ is a very worthy topic right now, and it's very high on everybody's radar. So thank you so much for the feedback.
Yeah, and thank you, Chief Glass. And just to let you know that this flyer went out to 440 homes. Corey's got the count because she gets the overflow. So the households received this, and we're really leveraging what Central Fire is doing to provide the classes with what we can do to broadcast the classes. And we also thank the town crier for helping us in that endeavor. And to that, Central Fire is going to be presenting an in-person preparedness class on August the 25th is the publication date, and it'll be held on October 14th. And that will also be in various magazines in the town crier. So we're just using all the media we possibly can to get this information out to the community. And then the recreation guide for the town is another great source of reaching each household. And here are pictures of the recent fall winter activity guide from recreation. And you'll see the various features of safety programs and CERT programs that we have available to the community. And that ends my report. Thank you for your time and attention to this. This is a little longer report because I didn't give one last month, so appreciate it. End of my report, sir.
Great. Thank you, General Manager Logan. Is there any discussion from the commission? Okay, hearing none. How about from the public? Any public comment? Hearing none. Okay, we'll now move on to item number 9. And items 9A and B are the reports. Emergency Services Manager, Captain Gluhan, and CERT General Analyst, BB, please provide the reports.
Thank you, Vice President Vaughn, commissioners, staff, other presenters, and the public for your time and attendance this evening. This first page is, again, just some of the collaborations that have been new and ongoing. We continue to look for those where possible. Next slide, please. So these are some of the meetings that we've been attending. Some are regularly scheduled. Some are additional, and you can look through and see some of those. I apologize. I have a parrot that wants to contribute. I apologize for background sound. And then we have, again, that flyer up in this corner talking about the solid square rectangle, that 31st meeting coming up. And then these are some of the other items that we have coming up here in the near future. Next slide. So one of the other important projects that we have, and we're going to have a further memorandum on this next item, but this will be the shaded fuel break. This will be brought up on item 10. I'm sorry, not shaded fuel break, evacuation route hardening. This is where we're at currently. We're working on the scope of work's been done. Permits and notifications have been worked on, and then public information that we've been talking about in this meeting is continuing. Next slide. I'll let Analyst BB go ahead and talk about CERT. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. It's been a little quiet the last month or so, but we're in full swing again here. Move on. Still involved in regular scheduled meetings. We had a great meeting today with the CERT program managers in the county. We are moving towards some regionalization and collaboration on our trainings. we are going to start to hopefully include some wildfire preparedness training for our certs as well. We're also looking at kind of standardizing our training as well to meet some of the FEMA goals that we discussed today. Just to kind of do a quick update on Teen Cert, we are still moving and planning on to expanding into the Mountain View High School. We are also looking into starting clubs on both campuses this fall and streamlining our registration process. Thank you to Sarah. A lot of our parents' approval letters and waivers are now online, which is going to make it a lot easier for us to streamline this process. So we continue to do that weekly. They're also working on their marketing press toolkits. I've taught them how to use that word. So we're kind of moving forward. They're excited to kind of get back to it again. We postponed our preparedness fair in collaboration with Lucia Smith from the town council. The town and Joan Sherlock's also been helping us as well. There's a lot of events going on in the next month, and we were wanting to use those events to promote and market our preparedness fair. So our date, I found out yesterday morning, is October 23rd. So more to come on that. Still working with the ECC. We have a joint collaboration meeting with the town, Drew Anderson and I, to help them to do a table talk exercise on emergency response and their role in that. So looking forward to working with the town on some emergency communications drills. Also, Denise and I are part of the regional GIS team. The county OES office has created a platform of jurisdictional collaborations on GIS mapping and adding different layers. It's great because they really want to hear from our Cert program managers when it comes to damage assessment layers for Cert. So working with them on some integration as well. We are also working with Santa Clara County Fire Department. We're talking about doing some hybrid collaboration. I think the final on that is going to be a hybrid launch through County Fire in January. Some more news on that later. I've been taking a lot of classes on FirstNet, back office training. FirstNet phones were purchased by the district for our disaster trailers and our ARC. And I'm going to go to an event next week that is going to have some opportunities for me to look at other equipment like roving hotspots and things like that. We can put in backup trucks as a backup to what the current, I guess, availability is of some of the communication that we have through FirstNet. Also, lots of community education event planning. Just to kind of point out, we're definitely going to be doing 3 big events. The first one's going to be at the Hoedown for Los Altos Hills. Looking forward to that. We're going to have some Teen Cert roving safety teams. It's going to be their first event. They're going to learn how to use handheld radios and learn about ICS structure and safety checks. We're also going to have a couple tables there with some wildfire preparedness information, as well as some Cert and Teen Cert registration information. We're also going to be at the Los Altos Art and Wine Festival for 2 days of September 25th and 26th, hoping to kind of do some side-by-side tables with Santa Clara County Fire. We'll have our fun prize wheel out there and also some marketing materials on wildfire preparedness and also Cert. The last one will be October 10th at the Wines and Vines. Again, same thing as at the town of Los Altos Hills. More preparedness and more pushing out of our marketing for wildfire preparedness and Cert. Also, National Emergency Preparedness Month is next month in September. The town will be doing a proclamation for that coming up at their meeting on, I think it's Thursday night. And we'll also be assisting with Camel Cert Skills Day on October 16th. They've asked us to help with some collaboration. So looking forward to all those fun events. And that is it for us. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Emergency Services Manager, Captain Gluhan, and Cert General Analyst BB. Is there any discussion from the commission? Okay, hearing none. How about any members of the public? Any comments on this item?
Chief Glass has a comment.
Sorry, I didn't see your hand there. Go ahead, Chief.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just really quick question for Ms. Beebe. Were you guys able to receive the ability to have your AT&T FirstNet approved, or will you need to be sponsored by a response agency, or do you know?
We have a government ID, so we're good to go. Yeah, we've got our phones. We're all hooked up and set up. Thank you, though. I appreciate it.
Okay, and you won't need the support for an uplift. I know we carry that for Parisma Hills. So
I'm not sure. Let me look into that. That's a really good question.
Okay, just know that you have our support. If you do not have that ability, we're happy to carry the fire district under our IT to be able to uplift in the time of emergency. We're doing that currently for Parisma Hills. But if you have your own ID and you have the ability to do it, then maybe we'll talk about pushing that back to you for Parisma Hills so that they're more local and you work with them more closely than we do. But again, I just want to make sure that you're leveraging the full capabilities of the FirstNet product, and we can discuss further offline if you'd like.
That'd be great. Thank you very much, Chief Glass. Appreciate it.
Great. Is there any public comment? Okay. All right, we'll move on to item number 10. And items 10A through C are various reports on HVR projects and proposals. And item 10D is the appointment of ad hoc subcommittee to support these efforts. General Manager Logan, you want to please present these reports?
Thank you, Vice President Vaughn. Item 10A is a memorandum report that provides an overview of 2 projects, and it seeks council direction and consensus to develop a strategic fuel break with Mid-Peninsula Open Space District, and it recommends appointment of an ad hoc subcommittee. The subcommittee will engage with staff on the development of the strategic fuel break projects and integrate the work involved in Strategic Plan Goal 1, the CWPP, and Strategic Plan Goal 3, the Integrated Hazardous Fuel Reduction Goal. Then we move to item 10B. That's the Moody El Monte Road Hardening Evacuation Route Project, which was referenced earlier in the Emergency Manager Report. But this project now is in the resident approval to enter the property phase. Copies of the letters to residents, the right of entry form, scope of the project are in your agenda materials. A website is set up to provide details. There's a Q&A available along with the town crier article about the project. Permits from the county and Los Altos Hills Town are in the process of completion, and Adobe Creek will not have any intrusion by this project. There will be no entry to the banks or slopes of the creek. And this is required under riparian rights of creeks and environmental protection. The next step in the Moody El Monte Road project is anticipated to be on August 31st, when we have all the responses from residents who authorize entry onto their property. And then Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council will manage the bidding process, select a contractor for the project, bring that back to the commission for approval, set timelines, and manage the project to its conclusion. A report will be presented at the September commission meeting. And then moving on to item 10C, this is the Los Altos Hills Strategic Fuel Break Project proposal. And at the July 27th meeting, the commissioners received the slide deck and an overview of the fuel break. Subsequent meetings have been held with Mid-Pen managers to determine the sub-projects, mapping the projects, and the treatment types. A draft memorandum, which is in your packet, to Mid-Pen is included. The memo background outlines the meetings with Mid-Pen Central Fire and Fire Safe Council and Los Altos Hills County Fire District to walk and drive the terrain of the proposed project. Page 2 of the report, figure 1, displays the fuel break line, and figure 2 displays the sub-projects on the fuel break line. The fuel break areas are mostly on Mid-Pen jurisdictions, and the abutting areas are either private residents or properties in the Los Altos Hills Fire District jurisdiction. Hence, a partnership of both parties working together with development, how each party can cooperate and participate for the benefit of fire safety and environmental protection of the area is now underway. With this introduction, I'd like to ask Dave Barnett to provide comments. And then following his comments, I'd like to ask Mid-Pen managers to introduce themselves and provide comments. And then we'll end with Jackson Ricketts providing a drone technology report that will be vital in the planning and pursuit of options available for the development of the fuel break. and then Jackson will provide his comments. So starting with Dave Barnett. Dave, do you have good connectivity? Because I know you're probably about in the Truckee area. Is that correct?
Dave is on mute if you're speaking.
Still no Dave. Oh, here he comes.
Thank you. I think I'm now unmuted. Sorry about that. Yeah, thank you, General Manager Logan and Commission and Mid-Penn, especially for taking the initiative to reach out to the fire jurisdictions to identify priority projects that would be in their land trust areas. They have a work plan, and we really appreciate the opportunity. I really appreciate the opportunity to work and collaborate with them, and then obviously County Fire and Fire Safe Council, as the report shows. We met, we took a look at the area, the topography, the fuels, and it really is amazing to see, as you can see by the slides, that there really is an opportunity in this collaboration to a strategic fuel break comprised of multiple projects of various fuel reductions and treatments, and it's a great first step. And so happy to take questions. This has been a great month, I believe, and when this is in place, it will really provide, as the report shows, increased resiliency for both fires that occur within Los Altos Hills Fire District and protecting Mid-Penn, as well as fires that were to occur, or wildfires that would occur in Mid-Penn lands, and protect and provide increased resiliency for Los Altos Fire County District lands. So look forward to working on this project, and if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them if I'm able to.
Thank you, Dave. Denise, did you want to make some comments? You were on the initial team.
Yeah, again, this originally, as everybody knows, last year, almost the 1-year anniversary yesterday was actually of the CZU fires starting, that we were identified as on the western edge inside the containment area defined by CAL FIRE. When Jay Logan and I discussed that, one of the conditions that, and has been brought up by public members along those public land trusts, is, what can we do to have a better containment line drawn? Highway 35 might be a possibility. There's an ongoing road hardening in there, but that's covers over several counties. It's hard to collaborate, takes a lot of time. So it was a very advantageous timing that I appreciate Mid-Penn reaching out to us, asking for our input. Again, this is all on their lands or other private lands. These are not lands that we own. So this is an ask of us, a request and a proposal. We were asked to assist in that proposal. So there was a lot of collaboration with getting the pictures, Dave writing up the report, meeting with the other members from Fire Safe Council, County Fire, and then both the area managers taking us out in the vehicles and walking basically this whole stretch of this continuous fuel break. Alongside that, we'll be reaching out to residents to make sure that they've hardened their properties that are tied into the backs of this. We'll also be looking at fire access roads that tie into this, mostly in the Mora and Olive Tree area. So we're really trying to shore up that edge of the district to incorporate as much hazardous fuel management and mitigation as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. And if I could call on Michael Gorman, just because you and I have worked the closest together, to introduce your team. And this is the Mid-Penn team. Thank you.
Hello. Hi, Jane. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting us to this meeting. It's definitely a pleasure to work with the Los Altos Hills County Fire District these last few weeks in developing some ideas collaboratively together to what this proposal would look like and what these sub-projects would look like. And I think there's opportunity here for us to work together to better, meet both our needs and hopefully move that forward in the next few years. So my name, I should have probably started off introduced myself. My name is Michael Gorman. I'm the area manager for the Foothills area, and Rancho San Antonio is the main preserve within my area and within the Los Altos Hills County Fire District as well. With that, then I'll introduce my colleague, Craig Beckman. He's the Skyline area manager. Craig, are you there?
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Craig Beckman, also with Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space. I'm the area manager for our Skyline region. So my area of responsibility covers our little tiny Foothills Open Space Preserve that's different from Foothills Park. So it connects from Page Mill Road to the Hidden Villa property. And then I'm also responsible for any other Mid-Pen properties going up along Page Mill Road and along Skyline Boulevard that aren't within your district, but I'm sure are of interest in terms of fuel reduction and fuel breaks up along Montebello Ridge and some of these other areas that have some potential to protect the town depending on the nature of the fire. I am responsible for implementing our fuel reduction programs. I'll let Cody speak a little more to it, but we have we finalized an environmental impact report in May of 2021 to allow us to do significantly more fuel reduction on all of the 65,000 acres that Mid-Pen manages. We are working our way through prioritizing what work we are doing and when. One of the factors that plays into prioritizing work is recommendations that come from fire agencies, fire districts. So this is our first year of going through this process of reaching out to the fire districts to start getting an idea of what their priorities are. Then we work on reviewing how that fits into all the other factors that go into the prioritization, the environmental assessments that we want to do to be sure that we're doing the right thing ecologically, as well as fuel reduction, and then the timing and payment to be able to cover doing all the work. So we are interested in grant funding opportunities, working through a lot of the state and federal money that's out there locally now, that we are already applying for grants and already have some grants to implement projects. So there's a number of factors that go into actually implementing these things and putting them on the ground, but definitely getting the input from the fire agencies and their expertise, their knowledge of their local areas is a big help in guiding us to where work might happen. I think that's good for me for now. And Cody Cifuentes Winters is our resource specialist who created the environmental impact report. So I'll give him a couple of minutes here to introduce his program.
Thank you, Mr. Beckman. Cody Cifuentes Winter, I'm the Senior Resource Management Specialist. My specialty is in vegetation ecology. I have a background as a Type 2 firefighter and a resource advisor on fires at the national level. I actually worked with the U.S. Forest Service and with the National Park Service in regards to this sort of stuff. As they said, I was the project manager for the fire program that we developed, the Wildland Fire Resiliency Program. It took about 2 years for us to develop it, which includes multiple different factors, but the one that we're talking about tonight is our vegetation management portion. And in there, we identified approximately 5,000 acres of areas that we would like to do work throughout the district that is for fire agencies. So these are areas that we would like to assist fire agencies to be able to get in safely, to take a stand for any fires that might be happening. It also allows the public to get out in a safe manner. The other 25,000 acres is for forest health, and that's where a lot of our work will be involved in the future, is in that fire safety. One of the big things we want to make sure everybody understands is we want to be able to do this in a very ecologically sensitive manner, meaning that we are taking into account nature and how does nature respond to the work that we're doing. How does nature respond to climate change, to the different, the droughts that are going on, and what can we do for long-term resiliency to fire for both humans, but also for the natural environment as well. I just want to say it's been a very nice pleasure working with everybody with Los Altos Hills on this project. And I really do appreciate everybody's input and everybody's perspective on what we're doing. And with that, I will turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That's the Mid-Penn management team, and we've been very collaborative with Central Fire. Thank you, Chief Glass, and for Battalion Chief Matheson for joining with us, Fire Safe Council, and also just to the district team. I'd like to introduce now Jackson Ricketts, who was introduced earlier as our videographer and drone operations person. And Jackson is going to tee up some slides, and we're going to talk to you about, we're on the cutting edge of technology here in planning and developing our fuel break because of Jackson and what he brings along with the district team and the Mid-Peninsula team. So we've got some real synergies and some real opportunities. So Jackson, with that introduction, can I turn it over to you?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. First of all, can everybody hear me?
Yes, you're good.
Wonderful. So a little bit about my background is, like Jay said, I have done some work with the district concerning video production. I think some of the representatives and people who joined the meeting saw that tonight. But I also have an extensive drone operation background, 1,000 hours of operational experience with all sorts of UAS and playing with UAS technologies, as well as an educational background. So right now, or tonight, I'm going to give a presentation on something I'm passionate about. And something I think that could aid in this effort. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, you're good.
So, like I said, thank you very much for allowing me to take the time to explain something I am passionate about. My name is Jackson Ricketts. Along with a video production specialist, I am a FAA unmanned aerial systems operator with over 1,000 hours of operational experience. So this is some work that I've been working with Jay Logan and David and Denise on essentially allowing a bigger picture perspective of the challenge we have ahead of us. Looking at kind of the fuel models, fuel densities from an aerial perspective. So I'm going to go ahead and play the video here. What's going on here? Okay. Looks like I'm experiencing some technical difficulties. So what I'm going to do, let's go over to my YouTube page and look at the unlisted video. Can everybody still see my screen here?
Yes.
Perfect. So this was a video that we did. This isn't the entire video, but this is a flyover of some of the interest areas of where we potentially want the strategic fuel break. To our left, we have the drone flying about a 300 feet air-ground level, depending on where it's at. And we are coming up.
Jackson, I think, Jackson, hold up just a second. I think you need to reshare your screen. We're still seeing the old screen, the PowerPoint.
Sorry about that. Awesome. Thank you. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes, you're good now.
Perfect.
There we go.
So on the left here, we have the drone flying over some of the trails that we were looking at. Over to the right, I don't know if it's just me, but there are people's screens, but that is a overlapping it. But there is a Google Map basically overlay with the drone flight. And this is one of the ways, or one of the ways we've been using the drone to look and analyze different areas of this fuel break project. All right, so I'm going to go over here, stop sharing my screen, and bring it back over to the presentation. Okay, so in this application, we were just strictly looking at video, and video is a great way to kind of have an overview of the entire project, right? You know, we can see trails, we can see vegetation, you know, kind of vegetation models, we can see different types of vegetation. But there are other ways to really focus in and create more accurate data products to aid us in this process. And the process that I'd like to talk about is drone mapping. And essentially it provides detailed aerial intelligence of the area that we're flying over. In some cases, drone mapping in particular can create a 30 times the resolution of a satellite image. So if anyone has been on Google Earth and zoomed in on particular locations, with essentially the drone images and the drone mapping, we're just seeing 30 times that resolution. So we can identify different trees, we can identify different fuel models, and we can know exactly where those are with GPS locations. And essentially, we can also, with the drone mapping, get relevant, up-to-date, almost real-time information for informed decision-making processes. So why is this important? We can use these to identify different vegetation types, different vegetation densities, and different fuel models. Over to the right side of the slide, this is a sample area that I went out and collected, actually of part of this area. And we can clearly distinguish between trails, tall grasses, low grasses, and different types of vegetation, living or dead vegetation. We can also take this data and we can categorize it. And so we can look at the ratio of dead trees to live trees to low grasses to high grasses, and really formulate our plan of attack. And really what we're creating is we're creating up-to-date documentation of the managed areas that we're responsible for, or at least someone is responsible for. So over to the right of this is kind of a zoomed in area. You know, maybe the mid-pane team could actually identify what species of trees these are. Denise could probably look at this and say what kind of vegetation model this is. I just went and highlighted, so it looks like we have some medium to tall brush over in the blue section. Moving up towards the top of the slide, highlighted in red, we obviously see a dead tree. And over to the left, we kind of see oak trees or live oaks. And so we can take this, essentially, we can take this data and we can analyze it. It allows us to create data-driven analysis and data-driven decision-making. So we don't have to guess, right? We can know exactly where that tree is. We can know exactly where this area, essentially, we can know exactly where the problem areas are, synthesize and analyze, and then communicate that to other parties. And so this is kind of a repeat, but essentially how this process goes is we start with the data collection if it's doing LiDAR, photogrammetry, image capture. We then move into our GIS software, which then we conduct our analysis and our prescription. And then we can basically take those and make those into different data products to distribute to different organizations. If it's CAL FIRE or if it's MidPen, or if it's for emergency planning, we can take that same data and use it in many different ways. That concludes the end of my presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, this is Dave Barnett, and if it's okay, I just want to add, I really appreciate working with you, Jackson. And one of the things I like to mention to the commission on this data and its use is how valuable it will be in developing and discussing and actually putting on the project plan our vegetation management projects and our hazardous fuels reduction projects, but also being able to do the before and after analytics. Right now, CAL FIRE and its fire behavior analysts that come to incidents and work part of their fire prevention, is increasingly becoming more and more accurate with three-dimensional modeling. Most of the modeling in the past was two-dimensional. Now that you get into three-dimensional modeling of the different grasses, brushes, and trees, and looking at density, ladder fuels that actually exist, the fire behavior models become much more accurate. So with this data, especially the before and after our projects, we would be able to see and provide to the commission and to the public how that impacts different those vegetation management projects have impacted the fire behavior within the district, or and aligned with as I said, the increasingly accurate fire behavior models that the state is using, incident management teams are using, the universities, San Jose State, the UC Berkeley. It's just becoming incredibly accurate and more dependent on these three-dimensional modeling that Jackson has brought to us as a demonstration.
Okay. Thank you. Before we turn this over to the commissioners for their questions and answers and discussion, does anyone on the teams have anything else they'd like to comment? I'll go back to Mid-Penn, see if there's any comments after Jackson's presentation. Michael, Cody, Craig, anything? Okay, hearing none, then let me just conclude. The next steps for the district are to send a draft memo to Mid-Penn for their work plan, continue development of the project with Mid-Penn, Central Fire and Fire Safe Council. And then the recommendation that will follow is to appoint an ad hoc subcommittee to assist with this development and report back to the commission at subsequent public meetings. And with that, Vice President Vaughn, I've concluded the report to the commission and now turn it over to you and the commission for your discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager Logan. Do we have any clarifying questions or discussions for the commission?
I see Commissioner Tyson.
That's right. I got my hand up, and I have a comment and then a question. And my comment starts off, wow. I really found every aspect of this fascinating and quite interesting. And I have to share with you, I was on a meeting earlier today. It was with the sheriff, and Megan, the reporter for the town crier, was there. I mentioned, and I sent the link to this meeting. If you're really interested in what's going on, where's the heartbeat of fire prevention, come to this meeting tonight. And Megan sent me a note and sent a link with the information about this particular topic, and kind of asked, oh, is it just going to be a presentation, or is it just presenting a report? And I said, no, this is going to be a presentation and a chance to ask questions and then provide direction. And so after I said that, I thought, I hope I didn't oversell this. Maybe it's not all that great, but I saw the maps. I really love the cooperation, the bringing things together. And I don't care who came up with the idea first. I just say, for me, I'm all in, and I want to keep going with this. And I realize how significant this can be, especially those last points about the three-dimensional fire before modeling, fuel modeling before and after. Wow, that's very interesting. So those are my comments. And then my question is, having said that, and noting how many parties are involved and how complex it is, I saw the schedule had some of these elements being completed in 2023 or 2024. I might be a little off on that. And so my question to the team is, how do we get all this done by 2022? I already see Captain Gluhan's response.
Well, actually, let me just add, there is actually a portion being worked on. The Mora area is actually being worked on as we speak. So that's in current this year. There is, because of the sensitive nature of having, the Mid-Penn's whole mission is to protect nature, and we're asking them to kind of destroy it a little bit with what we're doing. So it takes a lot of, they have to do a lot of biological reporting, look at the species that are in there, what's affected. So there's a lot of, since this has never been really done, we are working off a lot of major roads, but some of them aren't major roads, so they really have to go in and see what's going on. And we're not the only person asking. So it's a proposal. They asked us for what we would like. So we gave them the Uber version of it and said, this is what we'd like. If it's Christmas, this is what we'd like. But we do have the realization that they have other entities and it does take a process, and their budgets have to be okayed, and they have to have the personnel. Everybody's struggling to keep personnel now, so they have to have all those things in place. So at least we have the ask in, and that's the starting place. And then the other component that wasn't mentioned, if there is a fire, all this planning assists on where bulldozers can come in. So it can lessen the recovery phases if there was a fire. So there is a benefit in that sense of having all of this started or at least planned, because we can talk about areas. We have pictures of it. There's other things that can be utilized with this data beyond just doing the continuous fuel break. So just be patient. It's an ask. We have to keep that in perspective, but a piece is being worked on now.
Thank you.
And Commissioner, I'd like to say also that as I evaluated and worked in my part of the project to assist the district, is that, as Commissioner Logan mentioned, there are other pieces in this that are within our purview, such as the HIZ, the private residence, and the robust HIZ program. Now that we have identified an area that is a priority fuel reduction line, we can target and look at the HIZ program. We can look at the access point, which becomes the jumping off point, the access and the jumping off points for county fire and the water systems and the access roads into those trails, so that we can evacuate residents that are in those trail systems better. And what work can we do? So like Moody Road has been identified as an evacuation area that needs to be hardened, this shaded fuel break helps us identify those areas which we need to potentially consider work that is in the district area and not on mid-Penn lands to collaborate those resiliency efforts, as well as the operational and logistical needs for the fire response or the law enforcement response to keep the public safe, and as well as to control the fire. So it really does provide an end state which provides a benefit to all the parties in terms of where we're trying to get to, as opposed to doing work on our own and finding out later that maybe if we had this discussion of where we're trying to get to, maybe we should have collaborated as we are now. So I really look forward to being part of the collaboration that is happening and helping the district and county fire and fire safe council and Mid-Penn reach all of their objectives in win-win-win-win situations.
Hey, thank you, Dave.
Commissioner Kearney has his hand raised.
Thanks, Corey. Yeah, so I think it's just brilliant. I mean, it just the overlap, between Mid-Penn and the district, I think is fabulous. Our combined assets would just be a real plus, both for the park, for the open space, and for our community. I have a question for Chief Glass about LiDAR. I seem to recall at one point that there was a data set for LiDAR for the county. Is that right? And does it, if that does exist, does it cover our district? And if that is so, are we going to get access to that at some point?
I don't know who has the access to it. I know County Fire has access to the data right now, but again, I think there was, everybody bought into it. I can't remember the exact amount. Again, we have it. I don't know, and I have not seen it in use yet, but I think definitely it's one of those things where we should be able to make sure that we provide that to the district and get you access to it. So yeah, we do have fine scale LiDAR data that was recently acquired through the county's large scale project.
Awesome. Yeah, and so it seems like, some combination of that and what Jason is doing would be great. And I had a question. It looks like the guys from Mid-Penn are already have their hands up, but I have a question for them, and that is, do the areas that you're thinking about or that we've proposed, do those overlap with tier 1 or tier 2 treatment priority areas that you guys identified in your resiliency plan? I don't recall that they do, but is that going to affect your interest in this project?
Hi, Cody Cifuentes-Winter with Mid-Penn. So not all the areas overlap in terms of the fire management areas, but there is some overlap. One of the things to keep in mind, though, is the recommendations from fire agencies goes into the prioritization. And so we haven't rerun the prioritization with all the recommendations from all the fire agencies. Something to keep in mind is we do have 12 different fire agencies that overlap our jurisdiction. So there's multiple different players here. But we'll be rerunning that modeling exercise that we have to re-see what the tiers come out for next year. To go back really quickly about, why does this take so long? We do have a lot of resource concerns that we need to make sure that we cross our I's and dot our T's, so to say. We have a lot of rare plants. We have a federally listed species that are in the area as well. And as you guys are probably very well aware, Rancho San Antonio has a very long human history. And so there is a lot of cultural concerns there as well. And then in terms of just really quickly about the LiDAR, so that was flown last year. I'm one of the project components for that, which is for the entire Santa Cruz and for Santa Clara County. When that data becomes available, it is publicly available. It will be housed online for anybody to get that data. We're also in the process of doing that for San Mateo County right now. We're about a year ahead in San Mateo County, and we already have multiple different deliverables that are extremely helpful in terms of fire participation.
Great, thank you.
I had one more, Melvin, if I may, I have one more follow-up, and it just slipped my mind. So maybe Roger, you could jump in.
Actually, we have Craig Beckman has his hand raised. I don't know if he wanted to provide additional comment.
Yeah, thank you. I think Cody covered a part of it. We have some portions of the proposal that were already in the works. So, okay, it's easy to commit to those. It's a little more difficult to commit to everything else that's been suggested because it wasn't the tier 1 or tier 2 priorities in our system already. Those tiers will get reevaluated, as Cody mentioned. So we'll see where it floats up, once we process that data around, and we'll be doing that reprocess every year to refocus priorities as needed. The other couple of factors in here, we haven't really had a chance to digest every detail of this proposal. And we might be going out there and saying, well, in this spot, maybe we can do some extra roadside clearing, but maybe we're not doing the 100-foot wide fuel break that you had in mind. Or maybe here we'll move it over closer to behind the homes and not do exactly what your line on the map shows right now. So there I think will be an ongoing give and take on what the right fit is, both for the ecology and for fire safety. So I think we have some similar but not identical goals in moving this forward. Then the final factor is funding. That if we get a grant to fund this, and that might be in collaboration with the town, things can move on a different pace if suddenly $1 million becomes available to fund fuel reduction work. So a number of factors go into the timing and the specific details of what we move forward. So definitely collaboration will be ongoing, and we may mix and match what's going to work. Thanks.
Commissioner Kearney.
Thank you, Melvin. I did find the question that I had, and that is, and could someone describe the Mora Trail project that is currently underway, that to which Denise referred?
Yeah, hi, this is Michael Gorman, Area Manager for Foothill. It's in the Rancho San Antonio area, so it's adjacent to the Mora Trail, where that comes out, I would say from the Ravensbury entrance into Rancho San Antonio, and it heads towards the disc lines. So it's an area that's opposite the neighborhood, the community along that's adjacent to the property line there. And it's basically a fuel reduction, shaded fuel break type vegetation treatment that we're going to do in that area, and hoping to start that next month.
Thank you.
And quickly, if I could just comment on that, we started doing biological surveys actually in January of that location. They just finished up their last biological surveys there. And so that's just one of the things that we have to take into account when we go to do this work, is to make sure we know exactly what's there before we go in and disturb it, to make sure that we're not doing more damage And we are weighing those pros and cons of doing work in those areas, fire safety, damage or impacts to the environment. And sometimes they don't conflict with one another in any way, shape, or form. They're actually very helpful in a lot of cases. So having those biological surveys really allows us to know what's there and to plan that work in a very ecologically sensitive way.
Was your intent to work on that project influenced by the fact that Mora is one of the, I think it's a secondary evacuation route out of the park? I guess it's gate 9 or something.
That is one of the factors that we do take into account is evacuation routes that go through our lands. And so it did receive some prioritization due to that.
Great. Thank you, gentlemen. Any other questions from the, oh, go ahead, Roger.
Just a few comments. First off topic, thank you, George, for telling me why Megan's here. I love seeing Megan attending meetings, but I always like to know why she's here. So welcome, Megan. Second, first I want to thank MidPenn and all the folks here for inviting us to be talking about this project. And Craig, I really appreciate your comments, recognizing that the devil's in the details, and there's a lot of details, this whole thing. It's not a simplistic thing at all, and we should recognize that. The last thing I would want is you being concerned about our enthusiasm coming in and all of a sudden making more of this than you're ready to make of it. So I thank you for calling us in, because there are 3 things that really excite me about this that I want to say on behalf of the district. First is to be involved with something of this scale and to have the vision of this. This is the level of project I want us to be involved with. And it's great to actually be talking about projects of this scale that really do relate to the entire town. Second, it's the kind of collaboration that we want to be part of. I mean, this really reflects the kind of regional approach we're trying to do as an organization, and to have County Fire and MidPenn and us as a district involved. This is the kind of project I love seeing us involved with, and introducing new technologies at the same time, such as the drone mapping, everything else. This is what collaboration is all about. So that's exciting. And third, really the key thing for me, and I heard about this project actually as a neighbor, as a resident, when I got the presentation, but this is the first time I saw a picture. And I think that picture, it's the 3rd slide, has the 5 projects. It shows that line across there. To me, that picture is the most effective thing that could be done to reward all those residents who called up the county supervisors on our behalf last year and said, we think this organization is important for our town. This is so significant for us here. You look at that picture and you realize that's delivering on what they're asking for. That just paints a picture to me of what this area needs to do to provide town-wide defense, modern approaches to addressing the fear that has been instilled by what's going on these years. So I just think that the visual of those projects, extending a line across the entire town, all those ridges, is just so powerful. And I'd love every resident to know that that kind of thing is being worked on. So that's a great shot. And it makes this project just viscerally exciting. So thank you all who have been involved in creating it. That's all I had to say.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Spring. Anyone else?
I do have one last quick question. I know we've asked you a lot of questions, and I appreciate your patience with all this. It's so many great projects. But Cody, I think that I've talked to you once before a long time ago about how do we identify the wildlife islands? What are we doing when you do your EIR? How do you map out where we are protecting certain areas for wildlife?
Hi, Cody Cifuentes Winter again. That's an excellent question about how we determine where things are. Like I said, I'm a vegetation ecologist, so I'm really looking at the vegetation and the populations of those vegetations and how they're working and how they're not working with one another, seeing a seed source, looking at soils. So there's a bunch of different things that go into place to know, what has the potential of being in this location. We also have a lot of wildlife biologists, and so their job is to go out and to survey for these species. Right now at Rancho San Antonio, we do have a couple projects going on. One is about mountain lions. We are doing what we call camera trapping, where we set up cameras at a certain every certain distance, and this can help us track mountain lions. Where are they going? How are they moving? And even possibly what the population might be. Based off of that, we work with researchers to let us know here's what the requirements are for those type of species, and then they sort of tell me what that requirement is for the habitat. I go into the habitats and look, how can I modify this to get this slightly different than what it is now? A lot of people always ask about, well, it's nature. Why can't we just let nature be by itself? And when I can, I don't like to go into nature. I like to hold off and let it do what it wants to do. Unfortunately, with human influences like climate change, fire suppression, and these other big factors, it has a negative impact on the environment, and we have to go in and we have to manage. We have to mimic what was there that is now sort of being lost. So, one of the things that we do, the first things we come in looking at this area is, what are the invasive species here? What can we do to modify those invasive species, get them out, and see how the environment responds to that. And so really looking at that information, along with a lot of schooling with a lot of smart people, we can come up with a really great plan.
Cool. Thank you.
Craig. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Craig Beckman. Again, I think Cody is great at the vegetation, but I'm not sure he quite gave the full story on how we look into animal populations. We certainly are going to look at any data that's available already about what species are out there. Are there any endangered species, special status species that have protections? One of the common ones we come across is the dusky-footed wood rat. That's very common out there, it seems, but is also considered a species of special concern in the state because of the loss of habitat. So we will avoid wood rat nests. We'll go out and look for those. If there are any other special status species, we will find out what they are. We'll do any surveys we need to do to identify that population and to take steps to protect that habitat. We'll avoid riparian areas because those tend to be concentrations both of plant and animal specializations that are more impactful if you go into those areas. And then on top of animals, we also will do a look into cultural and archaeological resources. So if there are known Indian artifacts in the area, bedrock mortars or things of that nature that we would want to avoid, we'll also map those, identify those as best we can, and identify steps to avoid impacts on that. Some of our vegetation management can be done in, I think you were alluding to, kind of an island-like patterns that can allow a diversity of habitat. It's not just a clear cut, that might allow some movement of different types of species into blocks that you might leave that are better for fuel and fire safety, but allow some variety for animal species. This is, as I think has been mentioned, this is not easy to pull that all together and do our best and learn from what we've done to get better next time. So yeah, a lot has to be weighed. So good question.
Right, thank you very much for that info.
Okay. Anyone else? Members of the public?
Yes, Alan has a question.
Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to speak. First, I'd like to compliment all of you on the outstanding effort. This is exactly what the public is looking for. It's looking for defense from the potential of a wildfire coming from the Northwest, as we saw with the CZU potential. So my hat's off to all of you for working diligently on this. Hopefully the EIR report that's already been done will provide a great wealth of information. I know some of the areas have already been identified for potential work, but I wonder whether some amount of shifting can be done under the existing EIR to enable additional work in the specific areas that the that the fire district and the town is most interested in forming protection. I know that I believe that the Mid-Peninsula has done extensive surveying of the area in conjunction with the LIDAR information. I wonder whether you would like to provide some feedback to the district as to the additional benefit associated with the proposal that was, I guess there wasn't a specific proposal, but the intent to use drones to do additional mapping. I guess some additional feedback would be valuable to the commission as to whether that additional work would provide valuable data not already available from the work that you've already done and the LIDAR work that apparently hasn't been made available yet. With regards to the comment about forming a ad hoc committee, I guess I have a question as to whether this is a standing ad hoc committee, and which means it would be open to public participation, or whether this is a temporary ad hoc committee. This is an area of great interest to the public. Ad hoc committees tend to operate in the shadows, and I wonder what the necessity is for the ad hoc committee as opposed to the entire commission, all of which have great interest with regards to this area. So thanks once again for all your efforts in this area. Hopefully it can be accelerated. If funding is a component of the rating system, I believe there's funding available from the district that might be able to accelerate the process, and hope it will be looked at in that favorable manner. Thanks so much for the opportunity to comment.
Great. Thank you, Alan. Okay. Any other questions? Commissioner Sherlock, you have your hand up. Any questions?
Let me take that down. I'm not sure. There we go.
Great. All right. And no other questions from the public? Okay. So thank you very much, everybody. The focus of the ad hoc subcommittee would be limited to the coordination, collaboration, and management of the strategic plan goals 1 and 3. And the term of the subcommittee is tied to the needs of the efforts. As an ad hoc subcommittee, it will be subject to the meeting rules required under the Brown Act, and will be made up of less than a quorum of the commission, which is 3 or fewer members. If the commission is amendable to the creation of this ad hoc committee, I will now accept volunteers for the said committee.
Commissioner, Vice Chairperson Vaughn, if I could jump in, it may have been your audio, but what I heard was you say that it was going to be subject to the Brown Act rules. And I think the staff recommendation was to make an ad hoc committee that was not subject to the Brown Act rules. General Manager Logan can clarify, but also in light of member of the public's comments, I want to make sure that the will of the commission is reflected. You could make it a Brown Act committee if you so chose, but General Manager Logan structured it to have a limited purpose for a limited period, with the recommendation to have regular report backs to the commission. And I think the report backs would be an opportunity for members of the public to be aware of the commission's and the ad hoc subcommittee's activities in this area over time. But my understanding is the intent would be that it would be an ad hoc committee not subject to the Brown Act rules, less than a quorum, limited purpose, limited term. But I'd ask General Logan just to confirm all of that. And I apologize, Commissioner Vaughn, if I misheard you, but it may have been your audio cutting out.
Yeah, no problem. And it's definitely not subject to General Manager Logan. Do you want to add to those comments?
Yes, just to say I concur. And in the memorandum report, it's spelled out what the role of the subcommittee is. It is limited term. It is for moving quickly, having conversations, and having commissioners to check back with staff, and then no decision making at that level. It's just moving the project forward and reporting back every month to the full commission. And that's where the decision making would take place. And I would propose doing that, see how it works. And then we can make adjustments at that if we tend not to be content with the way in which the ad hoc committee is operating. So I agree with what County Council opined. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jay.
Yep.
So are there any volunteers for this said committee? I see two hands, Commissioner Kearney and Commissioner Tyson. Is that Roger? Are you?
Do we want 2 or 3? I'd be happy to serve as well, but I would defer to Terry and George first.
Well, I think 3 is always good, and we're allowed to
good.
have 3. And it's less than the quorum of the members. So I think the more the merrier. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
All right.
Well, I raised my hand. I think you heard my positive comments earlier, but I'm the owner of the strategic goal 1. And since and Terry is like number 3, I believe. Is that right?
That's right.
And so, yeah, I can see how this is working out.
Thank you, George. Okay. With that, I will need a motion from the commission to create the ad hoc subcommittee for the coordination, collaboration, and management of the strategic plan goals 1 and 3, as described in the agenda item with commissioners Kearney, Spreen, and Tyson.
So moved, Tonka.
Seconded, Commissioner Sherlock.
Okay. Okay, the item is now open for discussion. Is there any further discussion from the commission? Hearing none. Any discussion from the public? And hearing none. Okay, if there's no further discussion, we'll now vote on the creation of the ad hoc subcommittee with Commissioners Spring, Kearney, and Tyson. District Clerk Vargas, please conduct a roll call.
Vice President Vaughn,
Yes.
Commissioner Kearney,
Yes.
Commissioner Sherlock,
Yes.
Commissioner Spreen,
Yes.
Commissioner Tonka,
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson.
Yes.
Okay, and the commission has approved the creation of the ad hoc subcommittee with Commissioners Kearney, Tyson, and Spreen serving, and it is a count of 6-0.
Great. Thank you, commissioners, for volunteering. We really appreciate it. You keep up the great work. And we will move on to item number 11. Okay. Item 11A is on the update of the financial audit. Financial consultant Vargas, please provide an update.
Okay, thank you. I'll keep this short and sweet. We are in the midst of our financial audit at the time with our auditors, Eide Bailey. And I've provided them with the items they requested of me. We're working back and forth with them to continue adding to their list of items. The county's financial auditors contacted our financial auditor this morning with a request to have a draft by September 17th, which means that the draft for our audit will be ready to present to the commission for approval at the September 21st meeting. And that is the end of my report.
Great. Thank you, financial consultant Vargas. Is there any discussion from the commission? Okay, hearing none. How about public comment? Hearing none. Okay, we'll move on to item number 12. Thank you, consultant Vargas. Okay, this is an opportunity for commissioners to provide reports or any future agenda topics there. Are there any comments from the commission? Hearing none. Okay, thank you. Is there any public comment on this item? Hearing none. Okay, we're gonna move on to item number 13, which is adjournment. Okay, this concludes the August 17, 2021 regular meeting of the Los Altos Hills County Fire District. This meeting is adjourned at 8:50 p.m. The next regular meeting will be via Zoom on September 21st, 2021 at 7 p.m. Sir General Analyst BB, please stop the recording.